Gonna go? Okay, hi everyone, welcome to the watermill. We are this week going to be looking at replacing these rotten floor beams on the top floor so that we can put some plywood down, and then we can use that as a stable place to start working on the roof, because this is the last stage we definitely need to do before we can start actually tackling the roof. The reason why this particular spot is because that's where the rain's been coming in and the floors are really rotten, which is saying something because the rest of the floors are really rotten. So, so yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. It's going to be a bit of a slow process, but that's the main task. And then Mark's mostly going to be working on that, and I'll be in and out because we have a lot of rubble to remove from downstairs, so that needs to go as well. So yeah, so that's.
And it's also really unsafe up here.
Yes, so you don't really want to be walking around when boards are being taken away when you're not 100% sure where the stable areas are. So yeah, that's the
stable areas.
Stable areas.
That's a bit optimistic.
Non-existent. The beams, basically, stand on a beam.
I can't stand there because that floorboard collapses and you're not heavy enough.
Yeah, because it's some of the beams look okay, but if you brush them or you vacuum them, then the vacuum will basically take a layer off the beam. Off the floorboard. Yeah. So it's not that safe. Whereas over there, it's like you could touch it and the whole thing will disintegrate.
Yeah, there's
nothing.
There's very little in that back corner, as you'll see once we start getting into it. But trying to take a slow and steady approach today. This is probably going to take a week to redeck because it's really sketchy. We've got the floors are on props. The joists are on props. The floors are disintegrating, but we do want to try and lift these beams the boards as gently as possible, because the council does need us to get their approval to dispose of them as part of our listed consent. But the reality is that some of these are absolutely going to disintegrate as we start lifting them.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of the condition of the floors. They're really, really bad up here. So we have to get them removed and put plywood down so that we can put ladders and stuff on them, because at the moment, my worry is if we put a ladder on it, and then you stand on it, and if you've got a tool or something heavy as well,
it'll go straight through.
Yeah, you're going to have a ladder leg just go straight through because it just can't handle the point loading.
Yeah.
There's a lot of areas where I can just push with my foot and just about go through, while still having my weight on my other foot.
Yeah.
It's not great.
So also some of the beams are, the floorboards are very long, so we're going to have to do it in sections, so we'll have to cut through some of them.
Well,
so
we'll have to see, because I think some of these are almost the entire length of the building.
Yeah, so you'll have to cut them if you want to do section by section.
Yeah, they're only from the 1940s.
An entire board all the way down. So yeah,
and they're also secured with blacksmithed nails rather than like machined nails.
Yeah.
So they're really, really rusty nails. So while they are rusty, they sort of bite in more, but they're not rusty enough that they just pop.
Yeah.
So they are very difficult to remove. So it's also going to be a challenge is removing what's left of the nails from the beams so that we can put flooring down. We've got decking screws, so we actually want to have these pretty flat. Yeah. But we'll see how we go. Yeah, you're gonna do rubble?
I'll do rubble, and I'll come. Give me a call if you need me to help with something. But I'll be staying over that side so that I don't accidentally fall through.
Yeah, because it's a fall from here straight onto the water wheels below. And not the water wheels, the millstones.
Millstones, yeah.
Yes, they're wheels.
All right. Okay.
Can you hit number 2 for me?
All right.
Actually, leave it for a second because I got to get this door out of the way.
Number 2. Okay.
Yeah. The first thing I want to do is just get our protective stuff up, bring in some scaffolding boards, just to sort of see where we're going. There's loads of doors up here for some reason. There were just tons of doors when we bought the place, and we seem to have them all upstairs, but they're great for supporting the floors.
Someone's mentioned here, says streaming this is essentially evidence for the council.
Yeah,
Which is what they said, yeah.
they do want us to keep like as much photographic evidence as possible. I mean, we've got 30 terabytes or something of footage so far, maybe 40 by now. It goes up at an alarming rate. So yeah, it's great for them to be able to see what we're doing. The council knows we're really passionate about this project. They watch the streams as well. Well, not necessarily the streams, but they do watch the videos. We know that. We know that the enforcement officer watches them as well. Nothing bad has come of that yet. But it does make his job a lot easier when he can just... Oh, geez, that floor is terrible there. When he can see what we're doing. So I'm hoping to orient all the plywood sheets lengthways across here. So they're going across as many of the joists as possible, because that way they will not only tie the joists together, because some of them don't have props, we can't get props into them because there's machinery below, and that way they'll provide the most support for the terrible beams. In an ideal world, we would be fixing the beam ends first. But I don't want to go fixing the beam ends and putting all new wooden stuff in there when the roof is still leaking. The floor down here is still very wet because it rained a couple of days ago and it's just sopping. I don't want to ruin the joints on the new beams because we've rushed ahead. So this is doubling up the work. We're going to have to take all the plywood off, fix the beams, and then put the plywood back down again. But for now, we need secure floors, not the best floors. So we're just trying our best. Slight problem here is that this is completely covered in mortar. Can you hit number 2 now for me?
Okay.
We've got a bucket here at least. Do you know where the dustpan is? The big one? Is it on the ground floor in the corner?
Yeah.
Or is it on the mid floor? If you can find that. Okay, so these are the floors we've propped previously. Like this is the back corner where there's like, from here it's a 2-story drop basically. So these floors I'm fairly confident on the joists because we know they're propped on both ends. But we also have a lot of debris here from where we've been clearing the mortar off the walls in preparation for repointing and future work on them. But it's been raining, so it's all wet. We've been having a very, very heavy week with clearing the kiln, so this has not been touched in quite a while. So in an ideal world, yes, we would have a better preparation for the stream and have everything laid out, but the stream is our way to have a bit of a lighter work day because the stuff in the kiln is absolutely brutal. I do have some gloves up here somewhere. The blue ones? Yeah. Oh, that'll work. Yeah, that'll do. No, this will do fine. We have our snow shovel-y sort of thing, which means we're going to dump debris downstairs, but that's okay. Hello all the people joining us, and feel free to ask questions. I will be trying to check messages every 10 minutes or so. Gives me a little chance to take a quick breather. I think I'm going to have to dump this. I think I'm just going to throw it straight into the kiln. So we're still digging that out. There's a frame of reference because people have asked before in videos to sort of give them an idea of where things are. This is the water wheel end. That's the kiln end. That's the back of the mill. That's the road side of the mill. And I haven't got the windows done up here from last week's stream. I pretty much left it. The tools are still sitting right where I left them at the end of last stream. We've been very, very busy downstairs in the kiln. It's been just a shattering week. Very, very physical week. But we're making awesome progress. And I'm hoping tomorrow I might get some time to do some editing. It's probably going to take me 10-15 hours to get the next video edited. There's a lot of footage to go through. And it's all GoPro footage, which is just horrible to work with. Yeah, footage off the big cameras takes a lot more resources for like computing power and storage, but it's so much nicer to work with. The GoPro footage is just awful. But I can't take those cameras into the kiln when we're doing dangerous stuff, or where we can damage them, or just where they're absolutely covered in filth. Try and avoid that wherever possible. So the next few videos are all from the GoPros because it's just too messy. All right. It's enough cleared that I can lift this board. Put them over there for now. Cameras so we can do a nice reveal of the lovely floors below. What are the rocks? No, the rocks are not part of the kiln. So before I switch cameras, we have, I'm just looking for a safe bit of floor to walk along. So here, this is the line of where the rafters are sitting on the wall. And some areas have a wall plate, but we need to get rid of these rocks, which are just cosmetic filler. They provide no structural integrity whatsoever. They're just there as filler. So we've been removing them from the wall over here. Actually, I can point this camera over that way and show you what it looks like. Okay, I got number 2. Let's get an auto fade on that. Okay, so all of that's come out of here basically. So up to this point, I have a sort of a 1x5, 1x6-ish sort of piece of wood there going to the end where the grain hoist is. But from here down, it looks like there used to be one because some of the rafters have a pocket for one. This rafter is just an angled end. It's a 90 degree on this. So, I think this is one which we've slated for replacement, or maybe not because it's getting doubled up. No, this one's not slated for replacement, but maybe that will change. So yeah, we're taking the rocks out of here so that we can put a new wall plate on top, which will be chemically anchored into the roof, into the walls, and then the rafters will be recut to attach to that, and hopefully we will get our new roof on. And that's probably going to start in, I said last week it was going to be 3 weeks, but still 3 weeks. Some of our materials got delayed, and shipping has been a huge pain to figure out. Okay, let's get this bit of plywood up, and you'll see why we need to fix these floors. Not only because this piece of plywood is soaked through, this piece of plywood is going to be reusable. Yeah, I suspect we don't really want to use this piece of plywood, and we probably need to put a damp-proof membrane across the top of that end. that doesn't smell awesome. So yes, this is our floors, and this is why we're taking on putting temporary flooring down. All right, I have a variety of tools. Not sure what's going to work for us, so if you have any suggestions for tools for ripping up floors, I am all ears. I'm going to try with the lighter tools first before we go into the really heavy stuff, and just see if we can clear this back corner. First, a scaffolding board. So it's not a piece of this floor that I trust. Start from that corner. Alright, let's go there. There we go. Oops. Don't need tools. These are just too rotten. It's just disintegrating. Yeah, don't need tools. Nope, these can't grab these nails. There goes a nail. So if the council doesn't agree that these bits of flooring need to go, well, I think we're going to have a bit of a disagreement. These are very ruined. So the floor below we still need to clean and strip all the mortar we've been taking out of the walls off, so I'm not really worried about dropping stuff down there because it's all going to get cleaned up later. To give you an idea of these floors, this is a, I can find, in the camera and pull focus back. So this is what just broke, and I'm sure it looks like a solid piece of wood from above, but inside it's just sawdust and tracks from where the beetles have eaten it. So there's not much timber in the timber, and this is like holding a piece of cardboard, like a single piece of cardboard in this shape, but just like a single wall thickness piece of box or something. It's not a lot to it, and there's more sawdust in there than there is anything else. Like you can see the sawdust just falling out as I tap it. Wood shouldn't do that. And when it does, it shouldn't leave lots and lots of beetle tracks there. So yeah, that's, now that I've tapped the sawdust out, you can see just how rotten that is. And I could keep tapping this all day. More and more of it will keep falling out. So that's why we can't trust any of these floors. I think I'm going to grab another scaffolding board because that single one doesn't feel like it's enough. While I'm doing it, I'll check questions if anyone's got any messages. David asked, can you fashion a rudimentary lathe? I probably could, but do you have any suggestions as to how I might use one? Daniel's saying, can I save bits of the floors, cut them next to support beams with a circular saw? I do have a circular saw up here for exactly that reason. I see Mads is asking about the lathe as well. Yeah, the gap's fun. It's not looking down the gap, it's wobbling over the top of it. That's a little worrying. For the less bad parts, if we find any, which on this top floor, I don't think we will. What I'm hoping is that, especially on the mid-floor, the mid-floor is a lot better because the floors down there are newer and they don't vacuum up when you go over them quite so much. We are hoping to use those to repair the machinery. So some of the machinery has wood cladding on it or just like lots of thin wood bits. So we're hoping to use floorboards to fix the machinery if we can find any sections which are not completely rotten. The support beams are mostly pretty good. Like if I grab a hammer and tap them, so if I grab this hammer, these beams down the end here are the worst, obviously, because they've been wettest. But like at the top here, it sounds a bit hollow. But if I go down just, 30 millimeters, sounds a lot more solid. Go down another 30 millimeters. Starts to sound like it's got more of a ring. Go down to the bottom. Got a much louder tone, much less hollow tone. So yeah, the top of this does feel pretty spongy. I haven't ordered enough timber to do complete replacements of more than one or two of these, I don't think. But they are pretty good all the way to the wall, unlike the floor below, where the timber is absolutely trashed. The good news is, though, that it should only be these two, like this third joist across at the top sounds as good as the bottom of this one. So the roof directly above here leaks, and this area has sat in water for probably 20 years constantly. So The very top of this section might be rotten, excuse me, a bit dusty, but I'm hoping that we can either just joint in a new section at the top with our scarf joint coming out a bit further on these, or they will be fine once they dry out. We have a super powerful new dehumidifier coming. We've ordered it from Classic Car Tools, who have gone out of their way to arrange freight, because it has been very difficult to arrange freight for something which has got gas in it and is a dangerous good. So they have worked really hard to help us. They're not sponsoring this or anything. They're just, I'm really appreciative of Tom's efforts to help us figure out how the hell we can get a big industrial dehumidifier up here, because our commercial ones died. Crispy Crip is asking, what made you choose Scotland for a place to live? It's Scotland. First of all, we're looking for a derelict property. So when we're looking for a derelict property, there's a few things which make life a lot easier. Scotland has the Buildings at Risk Register, which lists properties which are derelict, and so it makes it easier to find some. Historic Environment Scotland is a lot more open and forthcoming with stuff about dealing with listed buildings and derelict properties, which is great. There's a lot more information on their website than, say, Historic England. And the councils in Scotland all maintain abandoned or uninhabited houses registers, which are all open. The registers of Scotland hold property details for every single bit of land which has been registered in the deeds of, or in the registers of Scotland with their deeds in the past several centuries. So while some places aren't there, it's because they've mostly stayed within a family for the past 800 plus years and were never registered formally into the registers of Scotland. So finding the owner of a derelict place is somewhat easier. We really like the Scottish people. They're very friendly and, you know, really nice. Basically, Scotland was a lot easier to deal with when finding a derelict. It's a lot easier from a planning perspective. It's a lot easier from dealing with listed buildings. You hear a lot of horror stories of England dealing with listed buildings and just councils being a giant pain in the ass and the government being a giant pain in the ass. So Scotland seemed like a pretty good way to go. Yeah, it's just lots of things. And then we ended up here because of the property. We didn't choose these islands. Like a lot of people who move up here, I think pretty much everyone we've met has moved up here because they wanted to be in this chain of islands or a specific island up here because they'd been here on holiday. We'd never been up this far north before, so we didn't know that. We don't know anybody here. Well, we didn't before we moved. So yeah, it's basically just, Scotland is really great if you want to do a derelict or you want to do a historic property. It's a lot more open. It's got a lot more advice available. There's a lot more training from the government if you're looking for, like, in normal times, Historic Scotland offer training on, like, doing lime mortar. They've got a lot of white papers on their website about dealing with listed properties and, you know, the correct materials and all that sort of thing, which is just super fantastic. Which just made Scotland a really great choice. Personally, I would have loved to have been, we were looking in the Highlands and around Aberdeen. Aberdeenshire is a sort of north enough that it's cheap, but not so north that it's completely out of the way. So some stuff which we were hoping to do with our business we can't do up here, but that's okay because we're sort of a, we'd like to do this at some point, not that we were going to do it right now, but I really like the mountains, I really like the Highlands, but the reality is a day's ferry, like 2 ferries away, but it takes a day to get there, and then you can drive down to Inverness in a day. So there's some really, really stunning scenery up here. Really good lifestyle. Once we're done with all the logistics of the mill, I'm sure it will be a vastly better lifestyle, not having to spend half the week on the phone trying to get quotes for logistics, which has been the bane of my existence. We're not digging the kiln out. Okay. What I need to do is get about 2.4 meters that way. So I've got a couple more boards here which are cut already. This end board is not, I might need to move the camera. So I think all you've got is a view of my ass, which nobody wants to see. I put some coloured lights on downstairs to give you all some contrast. Yeah, it's very interesting how Scotland differs from England. I mean, as before we moved, you sort of think Scotland and England are completely separate. Well, they're completely the same country, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, all the same government, right? But no, they have all their own governments, and they're not the same at all. So they do things very, very differently in some cases. Okay. How's the volume when I'm smashing at this? Do you want me to mute the mic when I'm tapping? Sorry?
Loud.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay, you can mute the mic.
It looks like the descent into hell.
Darren's just saying, looks like a descent into hell. That was kind of what I was going for. I was going to go full red, but I thought I'd go like a magenta. Glad someone got that.
No, I said that.
Well, I'm glad you got it. At least you know what's going on in my head. Should be on the vacuum cleaner, I think. Kata's asking, what are we doing for amenities? We are renting a cottage on the island, so it's only like 6 minutes away, a couple of miles, and that gives us 2 bedrooms. Well, it's a 3-bedroom-ish sort of place, so it gives us master bedroom for our tiny human, and we get a somewhat of a kitchen, somewhere for me to have my office, and somewhere for the little one to play, which is great.
Getting into contact with the renovations, we're saying what we want to mock it all over.
We have looked at a couple of TV shows that are looking for people. Like, we'd love to work with George Clark because he does some really awesome stuff, but his shows now, I think because of his past experience, all require full planning permission and building warrants in place. We have half our planning permission, half our building warrants, so we're not eligible. Shows like Grand Designs have social media embargoes, so we couldn't do YouTube. We couldn't share any pictures of what we're doing if we went on those shows. So we're not in it for the money or fame. This is just a way for us to document what we're doing. To us, having something like Grand Designs or another show, which we're probably not grand enough for Grand Designs, having one of those shows.
They're more new.
Yeah, they're more the really big stately manors or the huge castles and stuff, or the new stuff. I'm not sure that we would quite fit into those. I think like the Restoration Man, when that was still running, would have been great. George Clark has got a couple of other shows which would probably work for this, but again, social media embargoes. We want to do this as a way to document what we're doing, be able to hopefully share our experience with other people who are looking at doing a historic building, because so much stuff we've come across with this is like, how do I even approach the problem? Because you look on restoration forums or building forums and there just isn't anything of how to deal with a 18th century watermill, how to deal with, you know, the kiln, how to deal with floors which are part of a listed building. Like the floors are listed, they're part of the listing. How to deal with old machinery, it just doesn't exist. And I know there's not many people who are going to come across the exact same circumstances as we have. There's probably only, I think, about 20 mills in the whole of England which still have machinery in them. But like the ways which we're dealing with stone walls and the way we're doing insulation on stone walls and the way we're dealing with our roof build-up and stuff is applicable to anyone who's doing a historic building. So for us, it's a way to sort of be able to look back and say, yeah, a month ago we have come a long way since a month ago, and a way for us to hopefully help other people who are looking at the same thing. And the wifey is laughing her ass off, so let's...
So someone's just asking about the dog, and then someone
The
said
doggo.
call it Grind Design.
Grind Designs. I like that. Doggo does have a space to play over at the other place. We've got a pallet blocking one exit for her and a bin laying down blocking the other exit, so she has a yard to play in. Over here she doesn't yet because the backyard is full of nettles which we keep spraying and they keep popping up, bird crap, scaffolding, rubble, cars, previous owner's possessions. So when she comes here she has to sit in the car, unfortunately, but she does get to go regular walks. Like normally when you're in the live stream, wifey's vanishing off, she's usually off taking Doggo for a walk or seeing what she needs. And we also have someone who is going to see if they can handle dealing with our little toddler, which will give us a bit more time here, which will be great, because it's a struggle with a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old. She only wants to play games for so long, like on her tablet. She's really fast at her little games, which is great educational stuff. Okay, before I put this on, any more questions?
No.
Good doggo. Yeah, she is a great doggo. But she sprained her toenail the other day. So she's got some anti-inflammatories for her sprained toenail. Didn't know you could sprain a toenail, but there you go. All right, that one is actually cut there.
Ask Evie to look after the tiny human.
Yeah, the tiny human angers her at times. The doggo doesn't like tapping noises or bashing noises, so she tells the tiny human off. And the tiny human doesn't like getting told off by the dog. All right. Let's get this one up, and we can clear the rest of this. Wish you could see the clouds of dust that just pour out of these. Like all that dust. Don't know how well that shows up at 1080p, but there's so much dust pouring out of these. Let's go back to the other camera so we clear some more of this. I don't have replacement boards. I've just got 18mm plywood, but yeah, these don't weigh much. There's not a lot of weight to them at all. I'm getting a pile of sawdust on the ground here from these boards. It's falling out the end of them. It's crazy. It's not something you really expect when you lift boards up. What I think I'm going to have to do first is pull some of these nails. Then we can, once I pull these nails out, we can perhaps move the scaffolding boards. So I'm going to try them with a big pry bar. See how they go. Sorry. it would appear that these are potentially iron, because I can use material science to destroy them by work hardening them. They just rock them back and forth. They crack apart very easily. There's not a lot of unrusted metal left there. Smash the rusty remains back in. Oh, someone was asking how the weather is earlier. I completely missed that. It's quite good today. I think it's guessing about 14 degrees. And it's cloudy, very overcast, but not raining today. We have some nippers for like proper nail removal nippers, but these are like quite substantial chunks of rusty iron, and they don't really grab the nails very well. Unfortunately, as you try and roll the nippers away, they're not strong enough to cut through, but the rust just flakes away as you try and lift them, basically. It's not awesome. Crispy's asking, does waiting for consent and permission from the council ever frustrate you? Not really, because we got into this knowing that is a listed building, knew what was involved with listed buildings, and we know why we have listed building consent requirements. There's been so many buildings which have been damaged or destroyed, historical buildings, because people either unknowingly or to save money or for whatever reason have gone in and done stuff to those buildings and destroyed them and made it so that future generations will never be able to enjoy them or experience them, or they've just torn them down. Back in the 60s, it was a really popular thing to rip all the floors out and take the roof off to avoid tax rather than just selling the damn property. So I'm not frustrated at the process, but sometimes, like with our listed building consent, which allows these floors, I was starting to get a little bit worried about how long it was taking, because like there's a 21-day minimum period for public to be able to have their say, and Historic Environment Scotland to be able to have their say as well. And after that, I was expecting, because I put in a very comprehensive application with tons of pictures and lots of description, lots of reasoning behind what we were wanting to do, that I thought the council would be pretty quick to grant it, but they're also really busy at the moment. So I did follow up with the planning enforcement offer just to see where it was, and pretty quickly got a response back from the council saying that we would have a decision on it within the week, basically. So I guess it just sort of got to just be aware that there's lots of other people trying to get consents for things. It's not just listed building consents. It's the planning department handles all your listed building consents as well as your regular planning consents. So yeah, it's not too onerous. I'm sure there's people who just want to. I know there's people, especially like up here, who like, we're on a small island. Historically, there's not really much government oversight, so they kind of just want to get on with it and just do it. And I get that, I do, but I think also your buildings have to have these consents, because we've seen what happens to buildings when they don't have this process, and it's pretty grim. We looked at buying a couple of properties, or trying to buy a couple of properties which had just been de-roofed and had their floors removed in the 60s, and just the damage done to some absolutely stunning buildings is absolutely horrific. And even just looking at some of the restoration shows, you'll see there's a lot of buildings which have had all cement renders put on them, and then the walls just crumble to nothing. Even brick walls have crumbled to nothing because they just haven't been done right, and it's pretty disappointing. I mean, I come from a country which is newer than this building, and wife as well, so I guess when you've grown up with all this history, and grown up with knowing that these houses have been here for hundreds of years before your parents were born, it's not really perhaps as impactful as to us. So maybe we're a little bit more appreciative of the history, I don't know, but it doesn't really bother me that it takes time. It's part of the process, and it's part of protecting this heritage for future generations. Right, I've got another tool for this, which will make this particular set of galvanized nails from the 1940s a little easier. Looks like they had trouble with the old Smith nails back in the 40s when they replaced this section of floor. You got modern galvanized nails with like broken stubs of rusty nail below it, and the rectangular nail like I have been breaking off with the hammer just underneath. So looks like they had some fun with them as well, which is good to know that I'm not the only one having this pain. Is that you've been getting more visuals than you anticipated. The whole village would probably hear him shouting. Well, there is no village, but we do have neighbours, and I'd be fine not to fall that far. Not that far down. Crispy's asking if we can get the wheel running up and anytime soon. The answer is no. It's almost certainly never going to happen. The land next to us was sold. They wanted more for the land than we could afford because we have to, do insulation and stuff as our priority and get the roof redone. And buying that would have set us back basically 6 to 12 months in funds. So the people who bought it have, from what I understand, millions, and we do not. So we were unable to buy the land next door, which is what the mill wheel pit sits on, and is also where the mill lathe sits on. The mill lathe is missing in a lot of sections up the burn, up the river. The people who own that land now also own the rights to the water, or their family does, and if we were to get water rights, we'd also be responsible for maintaining the weir, which is all the way at the top of the mountain, basically. Well, it's just shy of a mountain as far as mountain classification goes. It's 280 meters high. And there's a substantial weir with a dam wall up there. And I suspect that the liability insurance alone for that weir, because if it broke, it would flood everything in the valley down from it, is more than we make a year, and the maintenance costs would be substantial as well, just making sure that the weir stays in good condition. So no, we're not going to be able to get water here at all, and with that land next door gone, we wanted to buy it to be able to have the mill lathe and the mill wheel pit on as our property, and potentially put a workshop in there in the future. But obviously that's not going to happen. So yeah, there's not going to be any way to get water running. We just didn't have the budget for that land, and we don't have the budget to maintain the water upstream. This bit I'm removing now is some temporary covers to the chutes which would have gone down, so you would have been able to pour grain down here. Supposedly there may have been machinery on this top floor, but these chutes go down to the large blower downstairs. These are also all completely rotten, completely eaten through. Not sure if that shows up in 1080p, but there's woodworm all through this. So we will be probably just trimming these chutes so that they're flush with the top of the rafters so they can remain in place once the new floor is on. Don't know what to do about them today though. We will see. It's an interesting one because I don't have an idea what to do with this bit. These chutes are going to stick up. Looks like there was some carpet up here at one point. They've got some blue tweedy sort of threads sticking up. More old iron nails smashed under other bits of wood. Always a good look. And unfortunately these chutes are quite eaten away as well, but these are the ones which have got loads of writing all over them. Oh, actually these go all the way to the ground floor, to the thresher. That's very interesting. I didn't realise that until I looked down it. See, these are part of the thresher downstairs. Okay. The building's listed and everything to do with it is listed, including the water wheel. So the new owners wouldn't be able to do anything as far as forcing us to do something. And I really have no idea about what the legalities are of our mill wheel pit being on their land or our mill wheel trespassing on their land. But it does make me kind of want to apply to have the mill lathe listed. I don't know if the mill lathe is included in the listing specifically for the mill. So I am kind of wanting to have the mill lathe listed because it is a stone structure. It is the original one. The other mills in the islands, which still have working mill wheels, that's Tormiston and Barony, they have concrete lathes. They've got modern concrete lathes. They don't have stone lathes. So this is one of the very few stone lathes remaining in Scotland. So it is of historic interest. So I think it would be nice to get that, like to apply to Historic Scotland to list that separately to the mill. And that would protect it from anything being done. I don't have any expectation that the new owners would want to do anything to damage the lathe or have any designs on that land. Basically, they own the land around the burn from it, which had no road access, no way to get to it. So I suspect they bought it and were willing to pay basically whatever they could for it to be able to get access to the agricultural land, because they didn't have a way to access that land without going through that one. So to them it made a lot of sense for them to buy it. But it's not so much about the same as this, it's not about the current owners, it's about what people in the future may do. So we don't know what, in 100 years time someone might want to do with that land. So if we get the mill lathe listed, if it's not part of the listing of the mill, then we may be able to protect it at some time in the future. I'm wondering if I need to go downstairs and secure this somehow. I suspect it might just be floating here. We may need to make a cutout in our plywood for it for now. This is a long board. How far does this board go? We really liked the idea of a watermill. When we first started looking, we thought a watermill would be really great to own, but we didn't think we'd find one. I was thinking more a watermill on a river, you know, undershot sort of wheel. There's a really great one in Restoration Man, which they've got a lovely couple who have restored a gorgeous mill on a very fast flowing river, which is undershot, and something like that would have been amazing. But we both, wife and I, found this mill online independently of each other. Both thought the other person wouldn't want to live up here, too far from everything. So we both ruled it out, and then we both mentioned it on the same day to each other of, hey, I found this watermill. And that's how we sort of came to own it, I guess. So it wasn't particularly a watermill that we were looking to buy. We bid on another watermill in Aberdeenshire, which was burnt down many years ago, and was a much more substantial structure, but no roof, all the floors burnt out, so it was just walls, and it went for way more than we could afford, so we missed out on that one. But we're also looking at, if you do a Google search for milk bank house, like milk and a bank of water, it's on the bank of the River Milk. Milk bank house has a lot of photos of it. We were very seriously investigating buying that, because it's, or at least making an offer on it, because the owners had historically been anti-selling. It's on the buildings at risk register. It's a stunning property, but which would be outside our immediate budget to do anything with. But at the time, our main client hadn't reduced our income or our budget, and it's something which probably could have been able to save up for and afford in the years to come. But it had the old kennels and stables, and the kennel stable building we could have made into a family home, which would have been substantially smaller than this, which then we could have used the stable block as a workshop to be able to very slowly save Milkbank House. And that would have been a really nice one to have done. But the owners, it wasn't on the market. The owners had historically been anti-selling. The land was not particularly expensive. The buildings on the land didn't really add to it. Wasn't listed. It's one of the ones which got de-roofed and de-floored and every last bit of it stripped out in the 60s to save on taxes. And we found some stuff out about the family who owned it, which kind of explained why in the past they weren't willing to talk to anyone about selling it or even anything at all about it. They had some family dramas, which I won't get into, but that would definitely explain why they weren't in a particular mood to talk about anything like that. But they'd also decided to try and make a go of their farm. Now, this is 2019, pre-COVID. So farming was actually profitable back then, unlike now. And yeah, they were going to make a go of it, the farm apparently. But they'd mortgaged the land. They'd owned that land for hundreds and hundreds of years. Very wealthy estate originally. In the 1900s, it was very, very wealthy estate. But now they're at the point they're having to get a mortgage for farming equipment. So obviously tides have turned. But yeah, we probably couldn't afford that. Not in our current budget. Yeah, I like my Canada shirts. These are all bought when we lived in Canada. I've found very, very few shirts in England which I find interesting. So I still wear all my Canadian ones. I was trying to figure out where this floorboard ends. So the one up there, which is next to the scaffolding board, runs all the way. Oh Jesus, that floor is fucked there. Out of frame to here. Okay, that's a pretty long way. That comes way out of shot. Yeah, it's going to be a 7-meter long floorboard. Must be, unless that's a join there. Nope, that's just a change in floor finish. Yeah, that's a 7-meter long floorboard. Good luck finding something that long these days. Okay, I can remove one more here. We used to live in Calgary, on the outskirts of Calgary, and I used to work at the university there in their applied research division. It was good fun, but then life went a bit off the rails and we had to leave Canada because we were only on work permits and those expired. It's not screwed down, it's just a cover for the hopper into the blower. So I can keep this one because it doesn't actually look to be as bad as everything else. This is from the 1980s though, because it's got the name of the architect from the 1980s on it. So that's not of historical importance, but it is from the mill, so if we can repurpose it, all the better. Right, how the hell do I get to that one? I think I'm going to have to cut that one. Because it is rotten, I don't think it's worth saving. I was an Aussie. I've lived in Australia and Canada and England. I'm from Western Australia. Much fainter accent than over east. But yeah, we've lived in Canada, Australia, England, Scotland, and we've driven through Europe just for funsies on holiday. Our dog's been to, I think, 11 countries. What's going to be the right saw for this? Might go circular. Have to set the depth correctly. I set the depth just below going through. Have a chance to damage anything below, I think is the best strategy here. Okay. So next beam's end there. So yeah, I can chop this one. I don't think the council will have any issue with me chopping that end off because it is well and truly screwed. And once again, I've left the microphone on. Sorry. I think both the mics and the HM do prevent too much clipping, though. People in the past have said that it doesn't clip too heavily. Okay, let's get this next board up. First, let's clear this one so we can bring the scaffolding down. As someone said, don't paint myself into a corner. Excellent advice. Don't want to be stranded out there. I think we're at the point of a more angle grinder required. Yep. Okay, more angle grinder time. Yeah, I'm a terrible Australian. I don't drink. Don't like the beach particularly much, especially beaches full of jellyfishes and that, so don't really consider myself particularly Australian. Let's go there. Should give us a bit of ground to play with. Problem, like this beam I couldn't see from below, but I can stick my finger a good way into that. There's not a lot of that. There's a big pocket of rotten beam on top of here, which is not ideal at all. So I might have to do some reinforcing on that beam when we come to repairing the beam ends. So yeah, I wasn't going to have much hope lifting this. It's been glued to a piece of wood underneath. So that's fun. Yeah, a piece of plywood in there. It's been glued in. Lovely. I don't know if you can see, but there's this great big pile of sawdust here where the beams ended. Sort of beetle droppings and sawdust have just poured out of the ends. Lovely. Yeah, this beam needs a prop under it. I can shake it. Unfortunately, it's not in a very good area for getting a prop under. Those three have all got props. The one I'm on here has got a prop. This one doesn't. And it's definitely showing a good gap underneath it. Oh, Jesus. It's just falling to bits. I'm trying to lift this, and the end of the hammer's crunching this completely, and crunching the beam underneath it. It's just falling to bits. This section of floor is particularly rotten. It's just completely collapsing in. Yeah, I need to do something to support that. Oops. Ah, there goes my tool. Okay, I need to go get my tool. Right. Just going downstairs. Back in a second. Found it. Okay, I think I have to come back over a bit and get the bit of wood further down, so that, because it's all tongue and groove, or it was tongue and groove at one point. Currently, it's sawdust. Let's move this camera. So yeah, I need to clear this section so that I can get to the next section, so that I can get enough room out to put plywood down. Which might mean I need to move this pile of rotten wood. I've got to keep all this so I can ask the council for permission to dispose of something that looks like this. Just hilarious. But I do completely understand the reasoning. None of it's allowed to leave the building, because I suspect there have been instances in the past where people have put them into temporary storage off-site, and that temporary storage is burnt down, or they've never returned back to the mill, or they've gone missing, or whatever. But that's okay. I'll send them a email this week with today's findings. Oh God, there's just nothing left of these. So where's everyone else from? At least one of you is from Wales. Where's everyone else from around the world? Jesus, that floor is rotten. Okay. Aaron's from Channel Islands. That's an interesting place to live, isn't it? I've heard. Similar sort of fun to living where we are. Difficult to get stuff. Okay. Oh my god, that floor there, I can just stick this straight through the gap. It's just rotten as anything. Look at that. There's nothing to it. I did bring a heavier hammer up here. Might help. A smaller pry bar. Okay. So not only was that board glued from below, it was also nailed from below with a completely rusty nail. Yeah, tomorrow I might come in. I'm not normally in on Sundays, but I'm gonna have to come in and put some supports on these because they're okay at the moment. But if someone was to lean on it downstairs, I think it would go pretty quickly. And I really want to keep these because these have got some very interesting writing on them. Just sums and that sort of stuff, not of like particularly literary interest, but from the milling trade, which is kind of something we want to try and keep. grab a section of nail out of there. As you do. All these dust explosions you might be seeing as I lift something, they're not from the on top of the wood, they're from the wood itself. I suspect this bit of wood is just here to hold these floorboards together. So I hit this, I'm getting a really light tannish coloured dust cloud coming up, and that's after I've knocked all the debris off. So every time I hit it, I'm getting more yellowish sawdust coming off, and that's all from the Beatles, not the band, the boring ones. Yeah, this beam needs a prop as well. It's shaking like crazy under me. There's a hit on it. Oh, huge debris cloud, looks like a comet flying across the room. Massive amount of debris off these floors. Quite terrifying actually, knowing that that's the condition these boards are in. It's interesting, this chute has a top cover built into it, but this one doesn't. So maybe that one was going with the grain or something in it, and then this one was the return for it? Don't know. Maybe the other way around. So we do have the belts and buckets for these. They're all completely rotten and not really salvageable, but it's something we could potentially make templates to replace what was missing, even if only aesthetically. Another flying comet. Yep, huge cloud of dust. Bent that nail over. There Maybe with this section of floor we could do like an epoxy fill or something. Look at that. That's the floor. That's the floor joist, which could probably do with an epoxy fill. Something like that. Okay, let's move the camera again and see what people are saying, if anything at all. Yeah, Aaron, with the supplies, it's we have an island just north of us which doesn't have a ferry service as regular as we get on this island. We're very lucky to have a very regular service on this island. It's a bit of a longer trip despite being visible from where we are, and apparently this winter they went 3 weeks without resupply. As the weather was particularly bad, so yeah, it's got to be tough. We're planning an extension on the back of the mill, which will be for a large country pantry and chest freezer and all those goodies, so we can hopefully not have to go. So at the moment we go to the shops every 2 weeks. Hopefully we can extend that out a bit with a bit more storage and a bit more fresh food and such, being able to keep in stores. But yeah, it'd be a struggle going 3 or 4 weeks right now. We just don't have the storage for it in the place we're staying. Okay, this one's a fairly short beam, this next one. Or not beam, board. I think, yes it is. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it was in camera before, but this is the bit I just took that chunk out of. This whole section of timber up here is just completely, this is fungus which is eating this. This isn't beetle, this is all fungus, I think. It breaks down differently. So I think this has had a fungus in it, and it has since gone away, but maybe we could do some sort of epoxy top on this, or maybe we could do a complete replacement of this one, because it's not looking so great on the bottom either. It's interesting how the two adjacent beams can be absolutely fine, but then this one in particular is just rotten as hell. Going to break off halfway. Might mean we get the same out of this next one. Oops. Just smacked a chunk of wood out of that thing. Yeah, disintegrates pretty easily. beam's just, floorboard, sorry, is just falling to pieces. Getting quite a good dust cloud in here now. Should be enough for a sheet of plywood to go down. Let's grab a tape measure and have a look. Rebus, I'm wearing combat pants which have got built-in knee pads. They are vastly superior to using more traditional building pants which have insert knee pads. The insert knee pads are fairly useless. My construction pants which have knee pads are mostly a pain in the arse. They're not particularly practical. I'm just trying to find a tape measure. I thought I bought one up here specifically for this stream, but I may not have. Yeah, so knee pads with padding built in. Awesome stuff. Yeah, I wore these specifically because, and also the area around these, all of this is elastic, so it can stretch and the knee pad can move, and inside the pockets is adjustments so you can change the knee pad height internally from the pocket, which means you can get them in exactly the right positions every time you kneel. It's right there protecting your knee. And I did actually hurt my knee yesterday. I slipped on some pile of rubble, and that's my bad knee from playing ice hockey. So yeah, it's good to wear knee pads, but I wore these pants specifically because they are quite good if I'm doing loads of kneeling down, which obviously I am. I also have a kneeling mat there, but I don't think it's particularly practical for kneeling down on top of scaffolding boards. So yeah, I've got our mat, which is great when we're doing the walls, but not as awesome for doing this sort of precarious stuff. Okay, let's see. How far are we? 2.4 goes to about the middle of that. So that should work very nicely for a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Now, I know at the beginning of the stream I said I don't necessarily want to reuse that one which has been wet, but I think what I might do is put the wet part against that back corner, because it's not going to get any drier in here. So I'm going to just use something temporarily using a piece of structural plywood which is going to get wet is probably better than ruining another 38-pound piece of plywood, which has now gone up to 55 pounds. I bought all the remaining plywood at the local builder's merchant because the prices on their next shipment will be going up. So we bought 29 sheets, and we already had some left over from the stuff we bought earlier this year. So I think a piece of plywood's actually going to fit between the wall and these chutes, which is epic. So I need to just brush off these beams and see if we can get a piece of plywood in there. So you're not just watching some dude ripping up floors. As exciting and thrilling as that may be. I know the main thing which is going to be exciting and thrilling about this is anticipating me stepping right here and falling all the way through. Okay, because that is a very real possibility that in that area, and up here too. Up here there is no floor whatsoever. This has been a very high-risk week as we have been doing things in the kiln which have been sketchy as hell. It's been a very interesting week. Let's get a scoop for this one. Pretty rotten against the wall here. That's fungus as well. Okay, I'm gonna have to move these sheets of plywood because I've got nails back there. This is going to be interesting. No dying on stream, YouTube might take the video down. Well, we'll see. Hopefully not intentional. That bit of floor, damn it, I keep trying to stand on it. We've had this whole floor just covered in doors, like there's 2 doors there and another sheet of plywood over there, and I've got 6 more sheets of plywood up there because I was overly optimistic of how much I'd actually get done today. This is, it's wedged in on the nails. Yeah, that bit of wood stinks, which is wet. It's not a good smell. Okay. Definitely looking forward to that dehumidifier coming up here, and hopefully we should be able to extract about 30-40 litres of moisture out of the air a day. This outside humidity is cranking about 85-95% at the moment, and inside's been 70 to 80%. It's typically lower than outside, which is just fantastic news, but it's still high enough humidity that tools rust, and more importantly it's high enough humidity that the beams just aren't drying out, and we've got to get these beams dry, otherwise we're not going to be able to stop these beetles or the fungus. So having a new dehumidifier is going to be super critical. I reached out to a bunch of dehumidifier manufacturers, and like our main business, my wife and I, is doing engineering, marketing, and helping with companies with getting content which hits their SEO targets and stuff. We don't do SEO optimization, but we help create that content for them, promote their products and stuff, and reached out to a bunch of companies who do dehumidifiers, and just see if they'd at least work with us to do some explainer videos, not necessarily even sponsorship, just a slight discount or maybe even free freight on a dehumidifier that we would want to buy anyway. Not a single one got back to me. It's pretty disappointing. Not even the courtesy to say, hey, no thanks. So yeah, dehumidifiers is an interesting thing to buy for the industrial stuff. There's not a lot of good guides about them, so we're going to create one for the channel about, you know, buying a dehumidifier for restoration purposes and what you need to know about them and the different kinds of dehumidifiers and efficiencies and all that sort of stuff. I think it'll be quite a helpful video to some people. It's something which I do understand. It's just I was hoping to have a partner for. Alright, that beam is supported, that beam's decent, that beam's decent. That one's screwed, so I'm okay being here. We keep losing power. I don't know if you can hear the boop boop, but that's us. That's my UPS kicking on, keeping the cameras going as we lose power. Although this camera over here, which I'm currently aiming, is battery powered. The rest of the stream, well, the laptop's battery powered. The rest of the streaming setup, the ATEM and other camera, are all sitting on AC power, but they're on the UPS. We've lost power twice in this stream. And of course our internet's all on UPS as well, because we keep losing power. But losing power doesn't really make sense today because it's not even remotely that windy. Alright, well, why I switched to this camera was to show you this beam has got big rotten chunks in it, but when it comes to the wall, there's nothing in the wall here, so I can just rock that whole thing around, and that's why I want to have the plywood run down this way so I can screw into these, so even if they're not propped up, at least they're held up by the plywood. It is supported in the middle though. This one is on a support in the middle, just with the original mill machinery. So it's not too terrible, but it's not exactly brilliant either. hammers are all over there. Oh, well, I guess I'll just cut all these off then, because I can't be bothered getting off and going over there. Nope. People want to see falling. Almost happened. Didn't move my scaffolding board. Okay, that's all the nails dealt with, I think. Right. Now the question is, how the hell do I get a piece of plywood in there? I gotta get a piece of plywood along there without being in its way. Maybe if I put a piece of plywood down over here and then just push it, I can pull my scaffolding boards out afterwards. Oh god, that piece of floor, I've got to cover it up or something. That might work. Right. Okay. As I'm rolling this scaffolding board, the ladder all the way over there is rocking and shaking. Gives you an idea of how bad these floors are. Okay, I think now I can bring the plywood over here and just slide it over there, unless anyone else has got another brilliant suggestion for me. Yeah, I had thought of putting the scaffold board over there and then sliding it down, but I think these plywood sheets, because they're structural eucalyptus ply, are fairly hefty. I don't know how it goes pulling the scaffolding board out from underneath it. Don't know if that would be more dangerous. Okay, so I want to put this wet one back over there. I think it's meant to be dry for a few days, so I might just put it back wet. And we can come up and vacuum it. And then once it's dried out a bit, we can put some damp-proof membrane over it, maybe once that dehumidifiers arrived. I might bring a blower up here actually. We can put a blower on it. turn it around so that wet side sits against the wall. Make the other side wet, because realistically we shouldn't need the ladder against the wall, so if it has gotten weak on that side, it's not going to matter overly much. Oh, come on. These joists are not the same height. I've got to be careful, I don't want to damage the chutes which are sticking up out of the floor over there. Okay, so if I just do something like that. Need to shuffle it down a little bit. I was hoping that was going to sit right over the middle of that beam. It was looking really promising. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. No, you have to cut like 20 millimeters off it. That's very frustrating. Okay. Okay, there we go. We've got ourselves a safe bit of decking. One piece. In how many hours? Just need to trim it all the way along, which of course is going to be very difficult now that it's up against the wall. All right. I have to put something under that, aren't I, so I don't cut through too much. Jack's asking, are we going to replace the sleepers? The joists are not getting a complete replacement. We're replacing the ends, but that will be after we've redone the roof, because when the roof is off, stuff may get wet, and I don't want to make my new timber and new joints wet. So yeah, you have to redo the floors again. But hopefully by that point the roof will be done, and we'll be doing a more permanent job of the replacement. Okay, I'm going to stick this underneath. Temporary support there. Just check something on this. I suspect I'm going to have to pull this whole board out. these lines if it will give me a nice line to follow without having to remark the whole board. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work well, actually. I can just use the edge of the saw as my guide, but I am going to have to get it away from the wall. At least this will protect those. The chutes here. Okay. So this is pretty sketchy, but I think it'll work. I can't imagine having to have done all this pre-battery powered tools, and I've got enough extension cords going everywhere for lights. I really don't need more for all the tools, especially out over open gaps. Man, we live in an amazing age, don't we, with all these battery powered tools and brushless motors and everything. It's pretty awesome. What a time to be alive. Just made it through the plywood. Almost. A couple of spots where it raised up. Oh, that's frustrating. Don't want to cut through anything below. I've set it a little bit too shallow. There we go. Bye bye, piece of wood. Okay, let's give that another shot putting it in. Dusty. Yeah, this is probably going to be once I get this screwed down, it's probably going to be the end of the stream, because otherwise the Floofy and the tiny human are going to be getting a bit cranky. So I'm going to get this screwed down, and we will have in 2 hours achieved 1/10 of the floor coverage. Woohoo! Just another week remaining. But it is very important work to do for getting this roof replaced. Got to have this done. Okay. Could go a couple more millimeters against the back corner, I think. go. All right. Let's get some screws. I got myself 2 boxes of timber decking screws. Might not be the ideal choice for this, but they do have a nice straight section of shank, so they can lift the floor up, if the floor joists up if necessary. Oh, are you shitting me? We got to cut this to open it? What? Why do you have to cut a screw box to open it? We'll just pry it apart? Oh, we can just pry it apart. Okay. Why does it say cut if you can just lift it? Crazy people. Okay, I need a piece of tube for this, which I think I already have in my impact driver. Might switch cameras as well. It's say for theft prevention and making sure you get what you pay for, but most screws just come in a cardboard box. But I do get what you're saying. Alright. I suspect I might actually, on these more, let's say, softer beams, like to get some very, very long screws just to get a good bite in on the first view. I have some of those back here, which should secure the, not so much to secure the timber, the, whoa, okay, don't step on that bit. Holy crap. Yeah, almost died again. I stepped on the end of that scaffolding board and used it as a seesaw. Good move, yeah, great. So it's not so much to secure the plywood to the joist, but to secure the joist to the plywood. So I've got some pretty chunky screws here, which I was using for our monstrous winch. We got a 6-ton winch, which we used to destroy the kiln. And because our 800 kilo winch wouldn't do it. So yeah, we got this, and I got these screws to build a frame for it. Let's put this on mute for now. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll get to them once we get a few more screws in. I'm going to jump to putting the super long screws in this 4th beam.